So I'm going to share. And text 1a is on page 46. In general, we have 613 mitzvahs. It is fair to say that only 6 of them are constant. And this is a medieval, very respected book. Just in general, analysis of the mitzvahs. What are the two? The only thing we know firmly going for, once we got to Torah is that there are 248 positives and 365 don'ts. But then there's a whole exercise of figuring out what the don'ts are. As a matter of fact, even the Ten Commandments is not clear. If you Google it, there's many different perspectives on what the Ten Commandments are, because not everything is framed as thou shalt and thou shalt not. So this very respected book called Sefer HaChinuch, the Book of Education, as a preface, he writes that 6 of the 613 commandments there are 6 commandments, and the obligation of which is constant, is lifelong, and never leaves us for even a moment. They are to believe in God. That's just always with us. There's always that responsibility. 2, the prohibition to not believe in anything besides God. Number 3, to believe in God's absolute oneness. Now, it's not there's only one God as opposed to 2, but God is the oneness of the world. Number 4, to love God. 5, to fear is not the English word I would use, but to respect God. And number 6, to not stray after the feelings of the heart and the vision of the eyes. Okay, so this is this very respected perspective. What that tells you is that out of 613 mitzvahs, 6 are constant. That gives you 607, which are constant, which is definitely a truth at a certain level. Let's go to get to text 1b. Text 1b, which is on page 47. So over here. Among the commandments, to continue what this book says, there are those that a person is obligated to do at a specific time and not earlier, such as the commandment to do on the sukkah, which is on the holiday of Sukkot, to wave the lulav, which is on the first day of Sukkot, to rest on the holidays, to recite the Shema. These are time sensitive and time circumscribed, which have a set time of the year or the day. These obligations are not perpetual. They only pertain to certain times of the year or the day. Which that's all. It all makes sense and is very concrete. Shabbos, therefore, is 1 out of 7 days. It is what it is. Now, what we want to talk about is the idea that Shabbos is a concept and a responsibility on us, even before there's something to observe. For example, if you look in the Torah, the introduction of the mitzvah of Shabbos is at Mount Sinai. In our history, they were told about it a little bit before, on the way to Sinai. Yet, if you look at in the book of Genesis, the story of creation, God says that that on the 6th day, God created, and the 7th day, God rested, and this is now going to be a day of rest. But it wasn't performed. It was a concept. It sat on the Jewish people, but it wasn't a formal obligation. And for a couple thousand years, it was out there. So the difference between having a concept or responsibility to a concept as step 1 or specific obligations is a second thing. And what we're going to talk about is how the Shabbos idea, Friday night to Saturday night, there's Shabbos steps. But the idea of Shabbos is something that sticks with us all week. It's something meant to be a Shabbat mindset. And when we talk about someone being a Shomer Shabbat, we're not talking about necessarily what they do is 25 hours. That's the mindset they have. So just giving you a little bit of a preface. Let's move this a little bit further. Here, the graphic says someone who defined this observance, Shomer Shabbat, Shabbat observant, can Shabbat observance extend to the entire week? I can't. The things that I'm the liturgy I was supposed to read yesterday, I'm not supposed to read today. Yet there should be some a Shabbat taste to my Sunday, and my Monday, and my Tuesday, and my Wednesday, and further. So let's take a look at the next one. This is a verse in Psalms. The reason they bring this before we get into the verse is that in this week's Torah portion, this is why they bring it. In this week's Torah portion, the Torah lays out the holidays. There's Shabbos, there's holidays, and then it says Passover, Shavuos, Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, and it's all laid out. It's a trajectory of our holidays. The word for holiday in the Torah is moed. Moed means like an appointment. It's an appointment. You have an appointment with God. You have an appointment with yourself. You have an appointment with your family. That's what it's a special day. Just like if I have an appointment for tomorrow at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., I've set it aside. I've dedicated it to something. At 11:30, I'm on to something else. But it's making an appointment. That's the language the Torah uses for Shabbos and for holidays. It's an appointment. Now, the reason they bring this in is because this exploration, we find that there's something that an appointment is limited. But from Maimonides' writings, you can see that it's a little bit more elastic than it seems. When he writes in his book, he has 14 books on Jewish law, and when he has a whole book on the holidays, he doesn't call it the book of holidays in the language of the Torah, like appointments. He calls it times, which is much more broad. And he puts as his introduction to the book, he has he puts this verse from Psalms. I inherited your testimonies forever, for they are the joy of my heart. The reason he uses testimonies is because the Torah itself calls Shabbos and holidays testimonies. When Friday night comes and I shut off my phone and I try to, and my wife lights the Shabbat candles and we try to shift to a different mindset, and we have a liturgy. In the language of thousands of years of Jewish tradition, what I'm doing is acknowledging that the world is created by God, that my life is not as just purely my own as it may feel, that God created me for a purpose, and the world around me, the world I partake in, the things that I'm looking for, that's all with a creator and a purpose. Shabbos is a time to put the world, the very busy world, on pause and think about not just the forest, but the trees, or not just the trees, but the forest. Think about the panorama. And we are testifying when we light Shabbat candles, we make Kiddush, we are testifying to ourselves and to the world that we recognize that the world has a creator and a purpose. So it's called a testimony. That's the way the Torah calls it. So it's understandable that Maimonides would bring this verse from Psalms and say it's about testimonies. I inherited your testimonies, meaning God, you gave me holidays, opportunities to testify to your existence and purpose, and they are the joy of my heart. All of that makes sense. But it says, I inherited your testimonies forever. Now, forever, especially in scriptural language, it can mean forever like I will keep Shabbos forever, means every seventh day for my life. Or forever can mean it's perpetual. Here, you'd think it means that the holidays, we don't keep Passover perpetually. We keep it every year, Passover. Oops, the other way. To be the primary a classic commentator on this verse in Psalm says your testimonials, is interpreting the Psalm, the verse, are like an inheritance to me, meaning that I'm locked into them just as we're perpetually locked into our inheritance. There is never a time when I depart from them and I don't abide by them. Without getting to the laws of inheritance, inheritance in Torah law, we think of a will. A will, the way we do our wills is not considered an inheritance in Jewish law. That's considered a gift. I say, if anything happens to me, this one gets my baseball cards, and this whatever it is you give out. It's in Torah law, an inheritance is something that flows from generation to generation, naturally, without a document. Therefore, it's my heritage, and that is something that's just who I am. I'm my parents' child. It's something that's it's not today or tomorrow when we probate the way we think of it. It's a natural part of who I am. That and his languages there's never a time when I depart from them and don't abide by them. So the verse that Maimonides uses as his introduction to the laws of Shabbos and holidays is saying that these testimonies that God gave us, meaning Shabbos and holidays, they make us very happy, but they are forever in a meaning not that I will keep Passover every year on Passover. They are perpetually there. How's Passover now? I'm done. I haven't eaten shmurmats a whole year, but otherwise it's not Passover. I'm done. I don't have the restrictions of Passover. I don't have the obligations of Passover. We're done. So what can be perpetual about Passover? We're going to answer that, but we're going to focus more about what's the perpetual about Shabbos, and then we can stretch it to Passover too if we'd like. Here is from a great thinker to see the this is from a great rabbi who lived in the 19th century, but he was he's very well known for his explanation of the deeper theological and psychological and legal underpinnings of the laws and be able to therefore to understand not just individual laws but what makes them work. So here, one of the things he writes: all year long, we're obligated to fast on Yom Kippur. Why is that all year long? When Yom Kippur comes, I'm obligated to fast. What he says is that I, as a Jew, I have a Torah. The Torah tells me that Yom Kippur is important. Yom Kippur is a value. And the value of Yom Kippur, the consciousness of Yom Kippur, the responsibility of Yom Kippur, the connectedness of Yom Kippur, that's something I should think about not just in Yom Kippur. It's there. I fulfill it. I perform it one day a year. But the responsibility and the lesson of Yom Kippur is a consistent one. From the day we become Jewish adults, we're always bound to waving a lulav and dwelling in a sukkah during Sukkot. The obligation is constant, although the actual observance is only kept during the festival. The label time-bound commandments, which is real, that they're time-bound, now yes, and now later or before, no, we don't. There's no obligation. There's no performance, which distinguishes occasional rituals from continuous commandments, only pertains to their actual performance. Their obligations, however, and to use the obligation is maybe it's not the greatest word, but their concept and their importance in our lives are continual, equally binding before, during, and after the respective time slots. So in a way, and we'll talk about it, let's say it's I have a lulav. There's only one lulav in town. If you know what a lulav and Esther are used in Sukkot. And it's a few days before Sukkot. I have a lulav, and I decide to burn it. I whatever. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I'm burning my lulav. Technically, today it's a few days before Sukkot. I don't have any obligation to do anything with it. But as a Jew, I have an obligation to think about sukkahs. So at some level, whether concretely or conceptually, I have violated my sukkahs obligation by burning my lulav today. Because burning it today means I don't have it on sukkahs. I won't be able to have proper sukkahs. So I have to think about my holidays going forward. Shabbos is not just, it doesn't just land. We have to prepare for it. The language of the Talmud, the person who prepare for Shabbos will eat on Shabbos. It doesn't just end up. So it's not just about preparing the food. It's about getting the Shabbos mindset. And what he's saying is that in every holiday, it's something that's consistently with us. We perform it on a certain day, but we always need to think about the lessons and about what we will need for it. We'll go to 3A.
It's like you're preparing yourself before week for Shabbat.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, and they'll see in our liturgy, not only ours, in the I think it's universal in the liturgy, every single day there's a psalm we recite, and we say today is either Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Shabbos. The language of today's that I said this morning, and will be the same tomorrow and after, just the preface, you say today is the first day of the week, Sunday, first day of Shabbos. Now, on the surface, a week also means a Shabbos. It's also called a Shabbos. Shabbos is the term for a week. We use it actually in this week's Torah portion. It calls a week a Shabbos. But our sages tell us that the idea is that on Sunday, I'm saying today's the first day towards the next Shabbos. Tomorrow, I say today's the second day. It's Monday. Second day, I'm thinking about the coming Shabbos. It's in the Talmud. We spoke about people who their whole week was focused on what am I going to do? How am I preparing myself for that spiritual island oasis called Shabbos? Not just to unplug Friday in the evening and just transition to a Shabbos. They need to maintain the mindset. And one of the things, therefore, we say that it's Jewish law that we prepare for Shabbos. Not the laws of Shabbos don't only pertain to what we do from sundown until the nightfall the next day. Maimonides brings us, and this is a code of Jewish law also, on 3A, which is page 50. It is a mitzvah to honor Shabbos by bathing our faces, hands, and feet in hot water on Friday. It's a tradition. We take a shower every Friday. Now, I take a shower every day. And in our society, that's probably pretty normal. But even in days when it wasn't, in honor of Shabbos, you bathe. You got yourself ready. We wrap ourselves in tzitzits and sit with proper respect. In other words, we dress differently. Since I'm a child, I have a Shabbos shirt and a Shabbos shoes and a Shabbos from as long as I can remember, a Shabbos suit. You had special clothing for this, waiting to receive Shabbos as one would go out and greet a king. We wear clean garments to honor Shabbos. Ezra ordained that we do laundry on Thursday in honor of Shabbos. Ezra before the Common Era. We must set our table on Friday and clean the house during the day in honor of Shabbos. There must be a candle, a set table, a couch bedecked with spreads. For all these elements honor Shabbos. Even a distinguished person who is not in the habit of making purchases in the market or performing menial tasks at home must prepare for Shabbos. This is not just advice to make sure it gets done. This is a built-in part of the Shabbos mindset Talmudically. We treat it like a special guest is coming, even if no one's coming. We prepare. The house looks different. Many people, Malki is not a fan of this for me personally, but many people Friday they buy flowers, bring home flowers for Shabbos. It's that again, even as a child, I knew. One of us vacuumed. Everybody chipped in to preparing the house for Shabbos. What did it mean to me as a 6-year-old? I don't know, but I knew Shabbos was special. I knew I had my Shabbos shoes, and that I don't wear on Tuesday, and I knew that I had to vacuum the floor, at least the living room, and I got my sister to do the rest of the house. But something that I had to prepare for Shabbos. This is something that we have in tradition, and it says even the greats, the great Torah leaders, they would always chip in. Just how can I prepare for Shabbos? They'd come into the kitchen, and the Talmud talks about each what could they do so that they could have a part of preparing for this special event or special guest, so to speak. Our earliest sages, some chopped wood for cooking, some cooked, some salted meat, some braided wicks, some candled lamps. Others went out and purchased food and beverages for Shabbos, though this was not their ordinary practice. This is something that is in the Jewish mindset, that Shabbos is not just about Shabbos; it's the preparation for Shabbos too. And to take this to the code of Jewish law, our sages declared a mitzvah to cut our hair the day before a Jewish festival, so we don't enter the festival in camp. It's also a mitzvah to bathe in hot water. This is 3b 51. And wash our hair with soap and trim our nails on the day before a festival, as it is before Shabbos. It is also a mitzvah to knead bread at home on the day before a festival to honor the festival, as it is on Friday to honor Shabbos. Why do we have the tradition of challah? Tradition of challah is because we're doing something to honor Shabbos. It's something special. I don't eat it on a Tuesday. It's that there's something different in the house. How does one bring one's joy to one's family during the festivals? This is more festivals than Shabbos, and because festivals, there are fewer of them during the year. We distribute treats to the children and provide finery and jewelry to the women as we can afford. And when there was a temple era, and many people would go to the temple to bring offerings, and therefore they would have food, they would have meat from the offerings. Men ate meat from the peace offerings to be joyful. So did the women, but at least men didn't get jewelry and they didn't get the sweets, but at least they had the meat. They were eating meat. Today, since the temple is not standing, the obligation to be joyful can only be fulfilled for men with wine. So that's why we always make kiddush with wine, because wine, I personally don't go for wine, but wine is something that makes people happy. And I tolerate it. Text 4. This is from the Rebbe. It says, on Wednesday, a Jew wonders, how will I make Shabbos? So why he says Wednesday. We call Shabbos is the seventh day. Sunday is the first day. But spiritually speaking, Shabbos is the fulcrum of the week. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday are all days where, and we'll see it here in the text also, I believe, it's all kind of an extension in our minds of what we went through on Shabbos, how we experienced Shabbos. As a matter of fact, there is a law when we bring Shabbos to an end. We do it with wine, we do it with a flame. It's called Havdalah, and you can do that. It says Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Right now, you say, Rabbi, I didn't make Havdalah. You can make Havdalah. This is all Saturday night up until Wednesday. From Wednesday, that's the time to start beginning for the next Shabbos. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We have 3 days of landing the plane of Shabbos, and then 3 days of runway for the next Shabbos. So, in advance of Shabbos, the language is a Jew wonders what's going to be with my Shabbos. It doesn't mean where am I going to get the gefilte fish. This isn't just a concern about material provisions, but about spiritual provisions. It's a special day. On Shabbos, the Jew is more spiritual. And we could grow. So on Wednesday, you could start to be a little bit disconcerted, or he says despondent, as we wonder where the inspiration might come from. So on Wednesday, in our prayers, actually, built into our prayers, there is the beginnings of our Friday night prayers, which says, let us sing. So the solution is to sing and trust that God will provide. So Wednesday, we start thinking about Friday night. But on Thursdays, practically as Shabbos draws closer and inspiration is yet to strike, it becomes harder to sing. We realize that we must do something to generate the Shabbos inspiration. So the tradition in the Chabad world is that Thursday night people stay up late. Thursday night we sit down to study Hasidic philosophy and to generate inspiration. This brings about the inspiration, and by Friday we appreciate God's profundity and glorious majesty. With this, we are rendered what will be called in Yiddish Shabbos Yidden, a Shabbos Jew. This is something that entered in his book on daily thoughts in 1943. But the point is that there's the mindset we're always just coming from Shabbos or we're heading towards Shabbos. It's not just about the 25 hours. And to take this also to the holidays, we find in Jewish law, text 5, which is page 54. When Jews made their 3 annual pilgrimages to the Holy Temple for the festivals, God was revealed and they prostrated before him. Their souls experienced salvation. So going to the temple, experiencing a Passover, Shavuos, a Sukkot in the temple was a major, beautiful spiritual experience. They surrendered, their will was surrendered before God's will. They had no yearning or desire except for what God desires. Every Jew, each according to their capacity, saw and internalized God when visiting the Holy Temple. These sublime experiences lingered after the pilgrimage for the rest of the year. The experience of each festival lasted until the next festival. Saying is like this: Passover, I hope everyone had a nice Seder. And we had, hopefully, not only we enjoyed it, but we soaked in messages of internal liberation, being able to divest ourselves of our own internal shackles, allowing ourselves to be who we want to be, who we can be. There's a lot of power. There are a lot of powerful messages on Pesach. They're not exclusive to Pesach. Pesach on Passover we marinate in them, but they're daily lessons. Matter of fact, the Talmud tells us that we should be remembering Passover our exodus from Egypt every day of the year, because every day of the year we've got our own today's Egypt, and I need to liberate myself. So every single holiday is a reservoir of a specific flavor of spiritual inspiration. We embrace the holiday. We enjoy the holiday. Hopefully, we're inspired by the holiday, but we don't wave goodbye to the inspiration because the holiday's over. Say, now I got to take it forward. Passover had to teach me something that I should remember in May and June. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shavuos, all of them, they're exercises, but they're not meant to be limited to those hours. Those hours are the times when we have a specific ritual obligation, and we're, as I say, we're marinating the ideas. But the ideas, the hope is that we take those ideas forward. Okay, let's see. Now that the Holy Temple has been destroyed, we can no longer prostrate before God. Nevertheless, a glimmer of this sacred sublimation can be experienced during our festivals and our synagogues and study halls, during prayer, when Jews connect with God and strive for holistic sublimation, each according to their capacity. We're trying to, the holidays are experiences that we want to try to take forward with us into the year. Back to Shabbos. What is Shabbos refer to? What does God say? Then Shabbos is an eternal sign between me and the children of Israel that God made the heavens and earth in 6 days and seized and rested on the seventh. It's something that is eternal, it's perpetual, and it's up to us to make the testimony by experiencing it. And the idea is that we are in God's hands, we're in God's world, and if God created the world and God created us, there is a purpose in this. And here they bring a beautiful article from uh, a woman, I believe, Jamie Kahn, who I've never met, and it says the first few times I kept Shabbos, I found it somewhat exhausting. I'd feel strange and uncanny with the silence, as I'm someone who often enjoys the croons of NPR and background music. Mostly, I'm embarrassed to admit, my difficulty adjusting centered around my phone. I can relate to that. It felt strange to leave the house without it for hours at a time to go to Shabbos dinners or shul, synagogue. I'd wake up and reach for it before realizing it wasn't there. But curiously, by Saturday afternoon, I'd always adjust. I wouldn't itch for it quite so much. I'd feel at peace more than ever before without it around. Often I wouldn't notice how natural it felt to be away from the phone until the Havdalah service, that's the closing of the Shabbos day, on Saturday night, when the sun goes down and Shabbos ends, granting me access to my tech again. Quickly, I formed the habit of not wanting my phone back. I'm actually not up to that. I go for it right away. Of dreading the moment that scrolling would once again be sanctioned. After cultivating the peace of a tech-free day, I rarely desire my phone back again. Now I'll sometimes leave it off until the next day. And now I have a severe habit of losing my phone constantly. I frequently forget about it. So the tech fast has served me well. But what about the rest of it? What about the pause on driving, cooking, financial transactions? Often this means taking long walks. It means reading a favorite book. It means enjoying the company of those around you. It means letting yourself be bored, meditating, praying. It means basking in the beautiful experiences of enjoying the world in its current moment without altering it. Shabbos is a day for reflection and enjoyment, to breathe. Like meditation, it is restful and rejuvenating. Every time I observe Shabbos, it teaches me. I see the world differently, more beautifully, and I take it with me into my daily life. Just like, and perhaps related to my habit of forgetting my phone all around the house, the way I see the world on Shabbos has opened me up to a deeper sense of mindfulness and appreciation on a daily basis. I feel like a more mindful person now. I can go for hours without my phone throughout the week. I have so many moments when I'm walking down the street, feeling the breeze in my hair, spending time with a friend I love, writing, doing yoga, whatever it is, where I feel so present in my current moment, so connected to the world, to myself, to my spirituality. I feel like Shabbos has enriched those experiences for me. And when I remember this element of Shabbos, it becomes my guiding light of the practice. So that even when I'm not feeling as strong in my Jewish practices, and even when I've strayed from my routine of observance, I know what I'm striving for. It's that feeling and those moments, and I allow that to guide me. So the Shabbos idea is a consciousness idea of purpose and of self. Um, Two things come to mind. I don't want to harp on the phone too much because I have my own addiction. There's a boy who's now in college. He's not. He's away this year, but he's from a family in Burnsville. Did not grow up with this at all, and he was coming here pretty regularly as a senior in high school. And he decided that he's going to shop on he's not going to keep Shabbos per se, but he's not going to use his phone from sundown until nightfall, Saturday night. And he said his parents, his brother, his sister thought he's out of his mind. He said, but he said, for me, it's very relaxing. It's peaceful. I get, I said, there's such pressure that comes in, especially, the teenager or stuff. He said, it just, so I enjoy it. It's not a fast for me. It's a vacation. And another thing that someone else said to me a while ago was that they were on the set of Friends, the sitcom in in LA, and there were a bunch of teenagers there, and they were talking to themselves. That's so weird. They're sitting in a coffee shop and they're talking to each other. It's crazy. Maybe we should try that. It was so alien to them because that's not what you do. You sit at the phone at the table. You may talk with other people, but there's always the phone. There's always the distraction. So especially in these days, if only for that to try and cut out time for ourselves. And what she's saying is breathe, get to know ourselves, and that's really what Shabbos is very much about. And try and figure out like where am I going? Where do I want to go with this life of mine that God gave me?
We went to Barnes and Noble yesterday, and
Yeah.
my 8-year-old asked me, "What is that?" And I said, "It's the bookstore." We said, "What's the bookstore?" I'm like, "Oh gosh, I used to know." Yeah, we're going to bookstore.
Do they call that Kindle?
I'm like, I'll take you sometime. I'm like, you go and you look at books and you touch them and you read them, and if you like it, you can buy it. And
Why would you do that? Yeah. So here we have in text 8 from the Rebbe. By remembering Shabbat when it ends, its memory extends into the coming week. When we call Shabbat to an end, when we do the Havdalah, we're not saying goodbye Shabbat. We're saying we no longer have the ritual responsibilities to you, but we're taking you with us. The the Shabbat liturgy says that I know God is my salvation. I trust God. I will not fear. Why not Saturday nights? Because I'm taking God, the sense of closeness and intimacy of God with me, of Shabbos with me into my Sunday, my Monday, which is going to be a little bit more rough and tumble, but I'm not going to feel alone. By remembering the holiness of Shabbat as we enter the mundane week and leave Shabbat behind, we remember Shabbat throughout the week.
every time we come here,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's such a wonderful thing. And it's true about the next day. The next day makes what little observance I do even more important to me.
Well,
To follow
thank you for sharing it. Beautiful to hear. Yeah, that's. And I guess the sort of thing is we can do it in pockets, but there is a gift of Shabbos. We want to be able to tap into it. Again, is it going to be 25 hours or is it going to be 25 minutes? But to do something. And here we find in the Code of Jewish law. Oops. What I said before, the first 3 days of the week follow the previous Shabbat. They're like a long Saturday night. And that's why you can make the Havdalah service up until Tuesday in the evening. However, the last 3 days of the week gear up for the following Shabbat and are not tied to the previous Shabbat. Again, Shabbos is the fulcrum. And here, to take this a little bit more esoteric, text 10. The whole idea of time is something that God created, and it's limited. But we can reach beyond time, to timelessness, because in a way, for us to on a Sunday to tap in to the Shabbat energy means that we're not trapped by the clock and the calendar. Shabbat energy is eternal, and in other words, it's perpetual. Like the Jews before Shabbat was given, it was out there already from the seventh day of creation. But it's something that we can draw into ourselves. Shabbos in one way, but on Sunday in a different way, just the consciousness. And says this is because the divine light in our soul, this is from the founder of Chabad in his book Tanya, is entirely unconstrained by the limits of time. It transcends, dominates, and overrules time. From God's perspective, the connection we make with Him is eternal because God and His desire transcend the boundaries of time. So the idea of me or you experiencing the Passover energy today, the Rosh Hashanah energy, the Shabbos energy, is totally in bounds. It doesn't align with the calendar, but God's not trapped by the calendar. God is beyond time. And we go to text 11. which will be the final one. Although the obligation of Shabbos is on the person rather than the time, the mitzvah performed by the person has a profound impact on the time it is performed. The moment of the mitzvah becomes a sacred moment. Moreover, our mitzvah influences time itself. Not only do we perform a mitzvah that is bound to a sacred moment, such as a festival, we also uplift time itself. All of time, even Mondays, days, and moments that are not part of Shabbos and the festivals, are sanctified. So Shabbos has its narrow, and Shabbos observance has its, I don't want to call it narrow, but very specific meaning and interpretation. But then the moment of the mitzvah is not bound in time. It's the I made the kiddush at that moment on or the hamotzi on that moment on the Shabbos, but it's something that reached beyond it, and therefore the mitzvah that we do, which is not bound by time, influences the time in which we live. So if you look, here's Shabbos has 4 levels of impact, as they put it. They're calling it obligation. I'm going to call it like the concept that rests upon us. The mitzvah exists all year, even if you only do it on a specific day. The Passover concept I live with that. It's part of my heritage. Yom Kippur, all that. Then there are specific days that I have to ritually observe it. Preparation. When a holiday is coming, we treat it as a special event, and the days before are for physical and spiritual readiness, including starting with every week for Shabbos. The mindset, the lessons and feelings stay with us, shaping the rest of the week. Afterwards, we take it with us. And in performance, when we do a time-bound mitzvah, we bring holiness to all of time, because ultimately we're reaching beyond time. And therefore, it has here as being observant on Shabbat or the high holidays keeps us connected to God all year, shaping our mindset, guarding our actions, and strengthening our spiritual lives. So here are key points. Number 1, Shabbat and Jewish holidays are not limited to the days on which they fall. In many ways, they spill over into the days before and after. They're not just these little detached islands. They're experiences that take preparation and play out afterwards. Number 2, though we only practice Shabbat one day a week, our obligation is perpetual. We are perpetually committed to observing Shabbat on the 7th day of the week. Number 3, observing Shabbat and Jewish holidays properly necessitates material and spiritual preparation in the days leading up to them. Number 4, the mindset we cultivate on Shabbat and Jewish holidays doesn't end when the day passes. We bring it with us to the rest of the week and year until it becomes permanent. We develop it. We want to make it a habit. And finally, number 5, when we perform a mitzvah, we plug into a realm of godliness that transcends time. When we perform a time-bound mitzvah, so like this for right now, that's true, it's for now, but we inject this transient with an element of the eternal. Thus the moment lasts forever. So let's I don't know if there are any questions.
So is there, like, when they say Shavuot Tov, is there any meaning to that?
Shavuot Tov, so Shavuot means have a good week. So there's one way of looking at it and say, we're done with Shabbos. Now we're going to a new chapter. And I think that's the way I saw it growing up. Shabbos is done. Now it's going to come back next week. But now we're back to, regular sports, whatever I was doing. The idea of, in a spiritual sense, the idea of the Havdalah service. Havdalah means separation. Well, separation means, okay, I separated you from Sunday. But we want to separate, the idea is it's a transition more or less. And there, in that sense, Shavuot Tov means, I wish you a good week, because we hope that the Shabbos blessing, the Shabbos mindset permeates. If I've had a great experience, I don't know, it's not for me, but a Grateful Dead concert, whatever you want to say, if there's a great experience and it ends when it ends, and I'm not thinking about it or inspired about it or something going forward. The next day, maybe it wasn't that great. So Shabbos is obviously much more than a Grateful Dead concert. It's the idea of it's a mindset of connectedness. It's an inner peace, connectedness with ourselves, with people we care about, with God, and if we're experiencing it on Shabbos, you can't call it quits. It doesn't work that way, and you don't want it to work that way. So I would say again, Shabbat means to have a good week. It can mean different things to different people. From this perspective, hopefully be a good week because you're taking the Shabbos spirit blessing with you. Shavuot Tov literally means good week. Shavuot means a week, and Tov means good. All right.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Next week, God willing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi.